Something I was thinking about looking at some retro future images of how we used to see the world is that we have an easy time imagining that there will be objects. We've been pretty good imagining those flying, driverless vehicles. We've even seen the drones coming, the jetpacks. Rob just told you about all of the enchanted objects we see in the future. But we sometimes have a hard time seeing all those little invisible bits moving around. I think of the Jetsons, they have that sound. Remember that sound? Beep, 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 beep. Make that sound with me now. Okay, yeah, we could hear it. But what to do with it? I think as startup creators, we have a hard time imagining the good that can be done with that data. So the open data movement, I'll be talking about it later today, is something that's actually been started by government, not by startups, and embraced more by large, giant corporates than it has by the fast-growing companies that we see coming out of tech. And this is an incredible disappointment. I see a ton of startups in the work that I do, thousands of them, and I always get to that slide in the slide deck that says, we're going to be hanging on to our data for some future possible monetizable revenue stream. And this is a disappointment. We have no problem embracing open source and imagining the possibilities that happen when we put the source code out there and create these large, incredible teams of people to create these large, incredibly successful systems that suck our time and attention. But we have a hard time envisioning how we could publicly source that data.
All right.
So, we talk a lot about this big data thing is growing, the big data is growing, it's getting bigger, it's exponentially growing. We have a hard time imagining what would happen if we actually opened up that big data. This slide is from a successful Kickstarter from 82 years ago, where somebody built a hydrogen-powered cloud-based system to keep all the data hidden from view. This is the kind of thing that we keep doing. We keep creating the technologies that make it possible to share open data, but we keep it trapped, hidden away from view, opaque, and not out of some always incredibly competitive commercial intent. Sometimes it's out of inertia. Sometimes it's out of marginal cost, but mostly out of a failure to imagine what is possible when you unleash the data for more rapid science, for more medical breakthroughs, and for the ability for us to see the interconnections of all things, to see how good and bad actors impact our culture, our health, and our world. I'll talk later today about what happens when n equals all. For startups, what happens when you have all the data sets imaginable, where you're not just working from a trinkle of a fire hose, but when it's all available to you, and what your responsibility is if you're going to be creating these systems. We're going to talk about what is possible and really take a deep breath and imagine together what can be possible, what is optimistically possible. How can we see a world where we are accelerating science, where we are showing the interconnection of all things, and we're not just seen as a subsidized oligopoly of Western cultural imperialism, which is what we've become to the rest of the world. What is terrifying? This is something that's constantly in the news right now as the world looks critically at Silicon Valley ideals and ethics, or lack of ethics, the failure to really grasp the fact that we are humans creating this technology. We are humans making the decisions to build these frameworks for data, to keep them closed, to keep them open, or at least to expose the decision rights that we know are there. So how to think about that. And the also possibility that we might have a different scenario or future. Will we still have a winner-take-all technology culture where only a handful of startups in any given sector dominate if the data belongs to all? What will your startup contribute? How can you make the decisions in forming your startup, in building your startup, and scaling your startup to affect a positive possible outcome? Thank you. Join me this afternoon.